Thunder in the spirit of Crazy Horse. Taking up on where I left off yesterday, kind of, and I'm going to be talking about a bunch of different things today. Bunch of different things. Yeah, so let's take up where we left off yesterday on the downing of the Russian, the SU series bomber, the powder keg situation. Now it's being revealed today. Got some new intel, some new info here. It's being revealed today that I think one of the pilots survived. First of all, that's the most important thing. And it's also being revealed that this was a setup. Okay, this was a provocation, a purposeful provocation by the West, NATO, Turkey, all of them combined. You've got to remember, people, you have to dig for truth. You know, you have to look for truth. You have to, the truth is the first thing to go when some kind of Nazi regime or fascist regime or your government falls or whatever, or it's about to fall. The first thing that goes is truth. It's just a barrage of lies, and that's all we see from our government here in the USA and in NATO and whoever's in leagues with them. So anyway, the aircraft was shot down. Now supposedly the first damning piece of evidence that comes up that this was a lie by Turkey is they made a report. First of all, Turkey's just NATO people are just liars, period. But second in line here is the fact that when they made their UN report or whatever, they said, oh, we didn't know what country that Su-24, I think it's a 24, well, that aircraft is a Russian aircraft, and they know that Russia is in that airspace, and they know that Russia was bombing the terrorists. So they knew it was Russia. And so that's a lie right there. And then the other thing is they said that the aircraft was in their airspace 17 seconds. But when you figure out that the aircraft traveled I think it was 1.15 miles. Interpolate that with 17 seconds. The aircraft would have been having to fly at stall speed. Okay. Now stall speed, I'm a pilot. Stall speed is when you're so slow that the aircraft can't fly anymore. Those bombers don't fly at stall speed. Nowhere's near it. So there's another damning piece of evidence. And then finally you have Russia came out and provided their tapes, their air traffic control tapes, their radar tapes. I knew it anyway. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew that this was a provocation, that it was coming. And you watch some of these dipshits, this guy, I don't know his name, that's the press conference with the American press conference guy that gets out there. What came out of his mouth? Well, about the pilots getting shot. Well, the rebels have a right to defend themselves. Hello? The rebels have a right to defend themselves. The terrorists have a right to defend themselves. And one of the news guys that was questioning goes, "Well, does that mean that Assad has the right to defend himself?" Because this guy was saying everybody has a right to defend themselves, even. And he goes, See, these people are habitual freaking liars. And that's how you know recently I had a conversation about a post with somebody. That's how you know who to believe is just by looking at them and they're stammering, and you know when somebody's lying. I do. I can see it in their eyes. Shifty eyes, hemming and hawing around, that type of thing. Now, this is still a serious ongoing situation. It's a powder keg situation, and it remains to be seen. But Lavrov, the foreign minister, is just coming right out and saying it's a provocation, and it was intentional, and we know it was. So if they know it was intentional, well, you can expect severe blowback. Okay. And it's coming soon to a theater near you. So again, the West, or NATO, or a puppet of the West, Turkey, is caught in a lie. Oh, and by the way, this Erdogan, this president of Turkey, I think it was a year ago when one of his planes were threatened, he said, well, you don't shoot down aircraft right away. You don't, you give them a warning, and that's a normal thing. Yes, you give people a warning, because aircraft violate airspace, different people's airspace all the time. But, that's what he said back then, this Erdogan. But now he's saying, well, they were in there a full 17 seconds. It's just, you don't have to go far to figure out if somebody's lying. It's revealed right away. So this is basically what we're looking at here, is a blatant violation of flying etiquette, the norm as far as if an aircraft violates airspace, the violation of human decency with the shooting down of those pilots, the machine gunning of them. And the defense of all this, the American government defending all this stuff. It's really time that people started to realize that they're not living in a government or a state or a United States that's free anymore. Because everywhere you look, they're propagating lies. They're telling lies. And you catch them all the time, and they're caught with their pants down all the time. Liar, liar, pants on fire. And people have to really start to realize that they can't listen to the mainstream media anymore. That's completely controlled. What people should be doing right now, before this government here in the United States, which isn't a government, it's really not a government anymore. It's run by the central bankers. It's run by the rich families and the central bankers. And all the politicians are bought and paid for. It doesn't matter what side you're thinking about voting for in the elections. The Democrats and Republicans are all puppets. Obama's a puppet. And they're all there to be told what to do by these people like the military-industrial complex and the big corporations and the banksters and the central banks and all these people. Those are the ones that run the country. So if people don't want to be plowed under, the first thing you don't want to do is give up your guns. I notice that there's a lot of stuff coming out about, think about guns over the holiday weekend with the Thanksgiving, and yeah, we'll think about how many more guns we need to overthrow the government. They just love to sell weapons to other countries. And to terrorists, they scatter their weapons all over the universe. Now, one of these, when the helicopter went in to rescue one of the downed pilots, that got shot by a TOW missile, T-O-W, TOW missile, or TOW, however you want. It's an American-made weapon which has been given to the terrorists or sold to the terrorists. And, you know, America is the biggest exporter of arms, the biggest gun dealers, the biggest gun runners, and yet they're going to stand here and tell Americans that they shouldn't have guns. Well, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Americans will bear arms, and if need be, they will bear arms against the government, which the Founding Fathers said should happen if the government gets out of control and tyrannical and starts lying to the people and starts having their own agenda beyond the good of the people. So people don't for 1 second fall for any kind of thing about you should give up your guns. The only reason terrorists aren't roaming the street right now is because millions of Americans have guns. Of course, the other terrorists called cops, okay, the goon thug cops that belong to another aspect of the government, yes, they have guns and they're roaming the streets and they're killing lots of people. Men, women, children. So if you think it's a good idea to give up your gun, then you're really a dumb shit, okay? And that's what I'm kind of talking about today. That's one of the things I'm talking about, is just the death of truth, the death of, you got to be awake, you got to be aware. You can't buy into official party lines, official government lines, official patriotic lines here. Those are gone. The truth in those are gone. Now, what you should be thinking about is the resistance, okay? What you should be thinking about is how you can resist tyranny. What you should be thinking about is what they did in World War II in the Paris resistance, the French freedom fighters, the resistance. I'm part French, by the way. And you should be thinking about that aspect of forming up to combat tyranny, which is much worse than this phony war on terrorism. They distract by making the enemy seem somewhere else, okay, when it's right here in your own country. You know, and the reason I'm saying this is I'm just getting sick of the bullshit. Getting sick of the bullshit and lies, and I could say anything I want to say. I'm a warrior, and this is quote unquote a free country with Fourth Amendment, First Amendment, and Second Amendment rights, right? Wrong. But we'll pretend like we have them anyway, till they come and drag us off, right? Right. Now, they have put us in harm's way, and they are putting us in harm's way. The West is, okay? Oh, by the way, I want to thank somebody gave me a link. I'm not sure who it was. But, you know, I'm always talking about, well, I'm not really taking sides here, and I'm going with the moral high ground, or whoever seems to me to have the moral high ground. And I want to thank a person for a link that they gave me to some of the prophecies, or some of the readings and prophecies that was done by Edgar Casey, who was called the Sleeping Prophet, who I really think was a phenomenal person. He sometimes is called the father of holistic medicine. He diagnosed people when he was in his sleep mode. He would always do his readings when he was in sleep mode. And he also talked about all kinds of events in the future. And I really highly respect. He nailed so many things. It's unbelievable. And being a shaman, I really pay attention to people that seem to have a handle on seeing, having visions of the future. Now, Edgar Cayce said, he talked about Russia a lot, okay? And all the things that he said that would be applicable to this time period were that Russia was going to be a kind of a revive a sense of spirituality and goodness in the world. This is what Edgar Cayce said, and he said that they would be a leader and that they would be seen as the new, I don't know how to phrase this, that Russia would be seen as the new freedom, the change to goodness. And it's like history inverting, you know. It's like, well, one country 1 minute will seem to be the freedom fighters, like in World War II, it was USA and America and Russia together as allies, and you know, England. But then, you know, when history repeats itself, we were fighting the tyranny of Hitler and the fascist Hitler regime back then. But history sometimes can repeat itself, and it can juxtapose, or one country that was good or seemingly good can become a country that's rotten to the core, and like the Nazi regime. Now I'm going to go down a list of things here that you should look at, okay? Maybe we'll just make it a small list, but let's just look at some things that we need to look at here to determine where this country is at, this country that we call America, where it's at, where the government is at with that. Well, let's look at it. What are they doing here? Well, since 9/11, they established the Patriot Act and the Office of Homeland Security. First time I heard the Office of Homeland Security, I thought of the fatherland in Nazi Germany. They took away a bunch of rights. They declared war on terrorism. They made a false boogeyman. Instead of it being a country or a person, it was a thing, a word, a verb or a noun or whatever you want to say. What is it? A word, okay? Terrorism, an idea, so that they could apply that to anything that they wanted to. Okay, now let's look at the lies, and let's look at some of the things that have been done since that day. Well, we were told that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and Colin Powell went up and holding little powder at the UN, and saying that we needed to go in there right away. And what did we do? We went into Iraq and we tore it all apart and fractionalized it, and that's where the birth of most of this terrorism originated from. And then we went into Libya and we said that Gaddafi was a bad guy, even though Gaddafi, did you know that Gaddafi gave every one of his citizens a check every month? Every month, okay? And he was talking about going on the gold standard and off of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Well, of course they had to take him out, and they did it in the most brutal fashion, just like they did in a humiliating fashion, just like they did with Saddam, and just like they did with Gaddafi, and just like they want to do with Assad. That's their little march to their agenda here, their hegemony, their possession of all peoples of the world. Now, most people don't even know that America is has backed the fascist regime, the Nazi fascist regime in Kiev, Ukraine, and its dictator Poroshenko. That's heating up now. So we look at that and we don't have to, there's no question about it, that's what they're doing. Just have to look at the facts, you have to dig in. The southeast of Ukraine is being constantly bombarded, Luhansk and Donetsk, or Donetsk, I'm sorry, Luhansk and Donetsk. And you have the Crimean incident, and now they're like trying to black out Crimea. They've blown up towers and have made Crimea basically without electricity, millions and millions of people, because they voted to secede and go with Russia, okay? And there's the Minsk agreements, which are being violated by the government of Kiev constantly, but yet nothing's being done about it. There's tons and tons of military advisors and CIA people going into Kiev to train the killers over there and to try to paint the people that are in the southeast, the people that are freedom fighters, as terrorists. Again, here the word terrorist comes up. So while all that was going on, then this other thing with Syria, we've had 2 bouts with Syria, with the West trying to get into Syria and take Assad out. First time it was with, oh, he's got chemical weapons, and Putin went in and brokered a deal with that and stopped that, and then now he's going in to take out the terrorists. So you can see all the things that are going on here that belie any kind of thinking that the West could be truthful. Okay. So we got to look at ourselves as citizens of the world. We can't look at ourselves or citizens of the earth. We can't look at ourselves as citizens of governments anymore. We can't recognize borders in a sense. We have to look at the big picture. Thunder always talks about looking at the big picture. And I do investigative journalism just as a hobby. I mean, this is what I am. If I'm not talking about spiritual things, I'm talking about world matters, okay, and stuff that's going on in the world. And I am a writer. I am an award-winning author. So I have a right to be called a journalist, and I have a right to look at things. And when I look at things, rest assured that I do enough digging in there, just like an investigative journalist, which is unheard of anymore. Used to have them in this country, you don't have them anymore. I investigate facts from all kinds of different angles and all kinds of ways. And then I look at it from a shamanistic angle and from a spiritual angle. And I'm not too far off in what I see. And I'm always careful about that, because I realize that you know, things can turn on a dime, and what you thought was one way 1 minute can be another way the next, you know. And if I ever talk about anything that I see as truth, and then, you know, let's say 2 days later I discover that it wasn't, well, I'll be the first to say it and come on. But I've never really had to do that too much. I haven't had to do that too much. Everything seems to true out as to what I'm thinking with my visions and what I'm saying and what I'm researching. I mean, I combine everything. Intel to me is spiritual right on down through the physical. And I haven't had to backpedal too much on anything that I've said or researched or any facts that I've looked into. Now, people will try to question your facts, and they will try because they're not aware, they're brainwashed, they don't know. They're so used to, listening to the party line and the parroting, mimicking foolishness of the mainstream media, which is all controlled. There is no investigative, truthful journalism anymore. It's all controlled. So you have to listen to people that dig into matters. And now, I'm always digging into matters from a point of I want to be free, because the history of my ancestors, the Native American tradition, or the Native tradition in this country, is that we weren't. Okay, and that there has been this genocidal power, greed attitude ever since day one. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that same country that did that, that's still in power here, might still be that way. Or worse, okay? So I don't want to hear any bullshit comments, okay, about things that I know are true. I've given up trying to convince some people, because everybody has a right to believe what they want, and they also have a right to be just as big a dumb shit as they want to be too. So if you want to be a dumb shit, be a dumb shit. I know a lot of people appreciate what I say, and I think a lot of people appreciate my knowledge of different areas and the things that I've done, and the piloting skills and the martial arts skills and the shamanistic skills all rolled into one here. Thunder's got to be good for something, right? And I try to combine all that in the things that I see, okay, and the things that I research. And I'm just going to tell you right now that the way things are going right now, this is exactly what I see. Russia's the good guy, the West is the bad guy, if you really want to put it in black and white terms. That's what the balance of energy seems to be right now, as far as seeing how people react, seeing the truth, how the truth is exposed, and how others deny that they're caught as liars, okay? But yet they'll still, for some reason, they'll still come right out and say some of the things that they do. This whole thing with the terrorist thing and supporting terrorists, and it's obvious. It's obvious what the West has done and has always done. You can go way back to the Mujahideen and you have to look into deep stuff, just like you were a spy or just like you were an intelligence agent, and you have to read all the books, and you have to listen to all the people and the whistleblowers and everything. You have to take everything into account so that you can come up with truth, so you can weigh things out, because it's imperative of us to come up with truth, because if we don't, it could be our downfall. It could be, if you're caught sleeping on watch, then shame on you, okay? It's your own fault if a tyrannical government comes in and does harm to you. Just like it's your own fault if you live in a house and you don't have a firearm and you don't lock your doors. And if a bandit comes in, or a gangbanger, or anybody for that matter, some bad guy comes in and kills or rapes or loots, well, then it's your own fault, isn't it? Well, that's the same thing you have to apply to living day to day. And you have to be a warrior. I know this is a long video, but I like to cover a lot of stuff some days. I like to go into all kinds of things and cover things in depth. You have to be a warrior and you have to stand up, even if it means facing possible retaliation. Okay, you have to stand up for what you believe in. You have to bear arms. You have to bear spiritual arms. In other words, you have to defend yourself on all kinds of levels daily from people that are dumb, from people that are buying into some type of society's agenda, societal agenda, some type of agenda from the government, some type of politically correct viewpoint, okay? And you just have to stand up to it, okay? Just like all the security measures that are being taken across the states now and in many countries. Now, you know, sometimes I talk about this government, the USA. I don't want to single this government out as the only bad guy but it seems to be the predominant force controlling or having control over other countries like the EU, the European countries like Germany and Poland and Sweden and all these EU countries that fall in line with the West and parrot the same thing. They're all culpable, okay? They're all culpable. And the ones that don't fall in line with that, the ones that are representing a more free-thinking attitude and not wanting to be involved in some type of new world order type attitude, like Russia, like China, like some of the BRICS nations who are trying to break away from the stranglehold of the world reserves currency in the central bank, and anybody that tries to break free of that huge spider web of deception is immediately come down upon, and they try to take that country out. And they try to take people out. And this has been from day one. Anybody that doesn't fall in line with their agenda and their way of thinking and their way of trying to control the masses has to be eliminated. And this is just like what went down in Nazi Germany. You know, I mean, they just eliminated the people they didn't like, and they eliminated the elderly, and they eliminated what they called the sick, because they didn't have fit enough bodies, and they had this super agenda for the perfect race type thing. Now, another thing that I want to cover while I'm on here, I know I'm talking a lot today, but bear with me, people, because everything I say has deep meaning here. I notice a lot of people are getting sucked into this Islamic phobic thing because they are using this terrorist thing, and they're using the Muslim people, and they're using Middle Eastern people so much over and over and over again ad nauseum, and they're repeating it so much that people are actually becoming racist, and they're turning against Muslims, and they're turning against their brothers and sisters because they are indicting them with a blanket indictment that everybody is a terrorist if they're a Muslim. Get off that shit. That's exactly what they did to the Native Americans. That's exactly how they labeled us. That's exactly, they called us savages. And they even did horrific acts and blamed it on Indians, okay? And they had guys dress up like Indians. This is all from a playbook that's been used over and over and over again. So don't be a dumb shit and buy into this stuff over and over and over again. They like to divide and conquer. That's what the whole political party and the whole political system is about, is dividing and conquering people. Let's be a Democrat. Let's be a Republican. Let's be a neocon. Let's be a conservative. Let's be a liberal. When really there is no difference in any of those things. Because that line became blurred a long time ago, and there is no political party or person that is running for an office in a political party that has one bit of freaking sense. They have real low IQs. They don't even know what they're talking about. They're scripted, okay? Everything is a script. All these debates, all this stuff. They don't even talk about relevant issues that are facing America or the world. It's all about what people want to hear or what they don't want to hear. It's all very mundane shit, okay? So it's time that you started thinking about all these things, and it's time that a lot of people start thinking about these things. Start thinking outside the box, okay? Start pushing the envelope. There's an old term by pilots, pushing the envelope, getting outside the sound barrier, looking at things from a more spiritual and from a higher, like a hawk's point of view, from a bird's eye view, if you will, a shamanistic view, a free spirit. Break hold of the chains that are binding you and the ingrained your whole life is a series of ingrained emotions that you go through every day. You need to break out of that bondage and think free, okay? Think like a prophet, think like a shaman, think outside the box, think outside the everyday normal routine. Break your routine. Have an open mind, listen to others' viewpoints. And don't be fearful. The main thing that is being propagated right now is fear, fear, fear. Fear your fellow man, fear the terrorists. They even got things right now, programs where you should start taking pictures of everything that you think is there might be something wrong with or out of place. This is exactly like Nazi Germany, people. This is exactly like the Hitler Youth Movement when they said turn in your parents if you suspect them of anything. People, you really need to wake the fuck up. And that's how you know I'm a true investigative journalist, because I use cuss words, and you would never hear that on the mainstream media, would you? I'm a bit of look at me as a bit of a comedian. There, you listen, a little touch of a sense of humor in there, a little touch of, and when you use words like that, four-letter words, it stretches you out beyond this politically correct bullshit. It makes the person that's saying that real, because I can go all day and I can use all kinds of big dictionary words, and I'm not on a low intellectual IQ level. I think you realize that, don't you? So anyway, that's kind of my sum up today of what's going on. But let's remember here, let's get back. Let's just come full circle here a minute and remember that I started off talking about the downing of this aircraft and the powder keg situation. It's just a reflection of the intensity that everything that I just talked about has built up to. And everything that I just talked about has allowed you as a person to turn your back on certain things, so this was allowed to build up to this. You get my drift here? You can't turn your back. You can't turn a blind eye. You know, hear no evil, see no evil, you know. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. And you have to be a warrior, and you have to take the mantle of that warriorship, just like the dog soldier, and not give any kind of ground whatsoever. But keep that awareness of what's going on around you in all areas, and what's going on even beyond what you can imagine or see. So important to do that. Don't be buffaloed into what's happening on the world stage. Not look beyond what seems to be evident, or the party line, or the parroting line, or the babbling line of the mainstream media and press and all that type of thing. Look beyond that. Feel beyond that. Not just look, feel. Gut feelings, intuition. So anyway, I think I've babbled on enough today. I hope that you get something out of these videos, and I hope that you share them and pass them on to whoever. If you get something out of them, you think there's something worth something here. It's not like I have thousands of viewers. I don't. But you know what? It's not about quantity, it's about quality, right? So anyway, I guess I'll leave it there today. Keep an eye on this thing with what's going on here, because I think that this downing of the Russian aircraft could lead into a much, much more intense, although I don't see how it can get more tense and more. We are, if you want to talk about being on the edge of destruction, or the edge of mass annihilation, on a scale from 1 to 10, we're about a 9, okay? Or maybe even 9.5 right now. And destruction doesn't have to be total either. It can be a good part of the world just caving in, baby. Financially. And so there might be hard times coming up here. And it's always good to know who you can trust, isn't it? And it's always good to bond with others that you think you might be able to trust, and to have an open mind. All right, I'll leave it there today. This is Thunder, caring about all of you guys. I'm out of here. Adios.